Thank you everyone for joining. This webinar is about bringing operational and asset data together. We're going to talk to New South Wales Ports to understand how they've achieved real-time visibility in their environment. My name is Paul Berkovic. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for Rayven, and I'm joined by Ashely Rangott, who's the Asset Manager at New South Wales Ports. In today's session, we are going to start off by talking a little bit about real-time visibility and what we mean by that term, why it matters in asset-centric environments. Of course, we'll introduce and speak to Ashely from New South Wales Ports to get his experiences with these types of challenges and solutions. I'll briefly touch on who Rayven is and how we can help, and we'll leave you with some ideas around next steps and what you might consider in your own environments. So starting with what real-time visibility actually means in practice. First, I'll draw a distinction between real-time visibility and real-time data. So of course, we know and love real-time data for, as far as collecting data from sensors and instrumentation in the field is concerned. Real-time visibility does include real-time data, but it's a bit bigger than that as well. It's really about access to data. So specifically, we're talking about being able to detect changes early in operational and asset-rich environments, being able to get cross-team visibility. So we want to make sure that different teams are on the same page when it comes to operational data. We're going to talk about context. This is really important in operational environments. So being able to capture data is one thing, but being able to give data context is another thing entirely. And one example of that might be you can capture energy consumption, for example, on a machine or an asset or a building, and measuring that energy consumption will tell you how much energy is being consumed, but it won't tell you why. For example, if you're measuring energy on an air conditioning unit and you're not measuring weather and giving it that context, you might be consuming a lot of energy because it's a hot day. Or if it's a machine in a factory, it might be consuming a lot of energy because it's producing a lot of product. So giving context is absolutely critical. And these things all add up so that you can make better real-time decisions in your environment. What we're not talking about when we say real-time visibility, we're not talking about creating new dashboards just for the sake of it. Of course, when you undertake a project like this, you may well create a new clarified set of interfaces or analytics, but we're not creating dashboards just for the sake of it. That is certainly not the goal. We're not talking about creating raw data streams with no context because we've all got a lot of data already, particularly coming from asset-rich environments. We're certainly not talking about creating more alerts for the sake of it. We know about alert fatigue. People become overwhelmed and numb to the number of alerts that they receive. So we really want to create smarter alerts, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. And of course, you may be conducting post-incident reviews as part of your normal operational process, but that's not what we're focusing on when it comes to real-time visibility of information. So why does real-time visibility break down in asset-centric environments? Well, certainly we know it's not because of a lack of data. Normally, these are data-rich environments, but what we're lacking is usable connected visibility. And the reason is, number one, data is spread across many different systems. So we know that you've got different asset types in your environment, and those different asset groupings may well use different technologies, different software to capture that data. What's more, these different systems are not connected. So that means that teams are lacking that context that I talked about previously. We know that the timing of information is absolutely critical, and it's often the case that information and data is being captured and reviewed too late. So it's after the events happened, it might be in a post-review, or it might even only be noticed when there's a manual check on an asset. As I mentioned, different teams might be looking at different tools. They may have different views of data. They may even have access to the same data, but they're looking at different versions of that data. And what this means is they need to be able to communicate prior to making decisions. And we're going to talk about the ability to remove that pre-check of data accuracy before being able to make that decision. And finally, of course, in asset-rich environments, we know that data is changing quickly, things are changing quickly, it's a dynamic environment, and data is almost old as soon as you receive it. So we want to be able to act on it as quickly as possible. So what happens when you lack this real-time visibility? Well, I'm sure everyone on the call has experienced the challenges that occurs when you don't have access to the right information at the right time. Number one, it slows down your response times because, of course, issues are only detected after the fact and you can only respond once you know about it. Number two, unplanned downtime, the one thing that we all want to avoid in an operational environment. And that's because we're lacking predictability about the condition of the assets we're working with. We want to be able to act in advance if we can. Thirdly, there's a lot of manual work. In every customer that we talk to, this is still a major factor. There is a lot of manual manipulation of data and Excel work that we want to avoid. Fourthly, there's obviously increased risk. If you're working with incomplete or conflicting data, that increases the risk of making a wrong decision and resulting in additional problems down the line. And finally, of course, these things all add up to increased cost. Because if our assets and resources are underutilized, we could be doing things better. And this could be human resources, but also our physical assets. So what is the solution? And this is when it gets much more positive. So it's all about finding ways to bring data together. And we want to start by saying it's not about replacing the systems that you already have. We understand how important and integral existing systems are in your environments. Some of them have been there for a long time. Some of them have been newly installed, but we know they are really embedded in the environment. So I want to put your mind at rest. Best practice is not to just rip out everything and start from scratch. We want to work with what we have. And because of the technologies available today, like Rayven and other technologies, you really shouldn't need to rip out existing systems. Secondly, we want to make sure we're automating that manual data work that we talked about. Teams are forever stitching together information, doing Excel work to combine different data sets. That really should be automated. There are many options out there now from a technological point of view that should really help you automate this data capture and data processing so that you don't have to do that manual work. Thirdly, as I've mentioned, we want to unite that data to give it context. We can only give data context when we combine data from different places. As I mentioned earlier, giving data context is really when you get the insights and the value you need and really make your existing data work to its complete potential. And finally, we want to create smart alerts. And this is very much capable only when you've got data that's contextualized and combined. When you don't have data that's contextualized and combined, you're basically operating with an individual stream of data. And you kind of don't have much of a choice except to alert when there's a threshold breach or something simple like that. We want to be able to add in advanced logic that has additional conditions. So for example, it's not just about when this value goes above a certain threshold, send me an alert. It's more like when this goes above a certain value, and if it's during an active shift time or some other logic, then create an alert for me, because that's going to reduce alert fatigue and give us really actionable events to act on. So at this point, I'd like to invite Ashely Rangott to the conversation. He's the asset manager at New South Wales Ports. And I would, welcome Ashely and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me, and hi to everyone online. Thanks for hosting me here, and happy to chat through what we've done with Rayven and some of the challenges and solutions we've implemented here.
Fantastic. So why don't we start, Ashely, if you can just tell us briefly about your role at New South Wales Ports and the types of assets and operations you're responsible for.
Yeah, so I'm the asset manager for part of our business, which involves 2 geographical locations, Port Botany and our Enfield intermodal terminals. The type of infrastructure that kind of fall in my remit as an infrastructure owner and asset manager include our main infrastructure is wharf infrastructure, being a port operator, so berths and jetties, such as you can see in the background behind me. We have a large number of asset classes and types, so we also have road networks, buildings, stormwater, electrical, almost you name it, we probably have it here in the port. So our job is to maintain this infrastructure. We have a very long-term view of the infrastructure. We've got, asset management plans and strategic asset management plans and policies and all that kind of business behind it. So we really have a large amount of infrastructure that we need to track and maintain and keep a close eye on.
Fantastic. Thank you for the background. So Let's go to before the project that we undertook. Tell us a little bit about the ways teams were interacting with data and what kind of visibility they had across the port environment.
Yeah, so I guess going back a bit in time, the traditional way of doing things was, you would go and do an asset condition inspection. We primarily engage third parties, and that would generate data, as you kind of call it. And you might have Excel spreadsheets and reports. That was kind of the historic way of doing it. And then as we've evolved with time, we've implemented quite a number of sensors and systems, electronic systems and data systems where the sensors implemented out in the field. A lot of it's wireless or could be hardwired. A lot of that data, or it generally all goes through the internet or to our corporate network where it's in close proximity. So over the years, we've kind of been implementing various systems and platforms, and we realized we had a bit of a challenge when there was quite a number of these systems and platforms, and it can be a challenge when you've got logins to all these different platforms and trying to remember what you've got, what data you've got, and before you know it, your data is kind of all over the place, and you've got many systems that you need to kind of keep in mind. And obviously, the logical thing to do was trying to consolidate it and bring it into a single kind of consolidated area.
And can you tell us a little bit about some of the practical challenges that were created for the teams because of this, as you said, multiple different systems and maybe a lack of consolidation?
Yeah, I'd say it could be a number of things, and it's probably specific to each kind of organization. But for us, it was, if, for example, if we had some new staff or new people joining the team, lack of visibility, not knowing what data's out there is a big one. And there could be a lack of efficiency or lower efficiencies by not having all the data at hand. So, trying to find data, source data from various systems and platforms. Yeah, I would say the challenge is really about efficiency and visibility of data. Again, points to trying to consolidate it and bring it into a single kind of source or single platform.
Got it. And were there any kind of early signals or things that you really felt needed to change? And can you give us an example of where teams might have been struggling because of these disparate sort of data sources?
Yeah, look, early signs are when people aren't aware of data that exists. That is a big problem. You spend a lot of money on putting systems in and gathering the data, and you really need that available to. It could be all parts of the business. So primarily for our business, it's within the infrastructure team. One example might be for us, our environmental kind of team, who sits outside of the asset management team. They are looking for data, but not knowing that certain data exists. And all of a sudden, if we've got it in a single platform that is readily available to multiple people, they can get that data at hand, readily at hand, very easily. So making sure other parts of the business can get it, that was a big issue, and the solution that we found was to bring it into the single platform.
And the lack of perhaps access or knowledge that there was this data available, did that result in any kind of operational issues, or do you feel like it created inefficiency in the environment?
Yeah, really for us, it was internal inefficiencies. So, you might duplicate efforts in trying to gather that data, that someone in another team might go looking for it or trying to create data for data that already exists and may not be aware that you've already got it in-house internally. So for us, it was all about efficiencies and minimizing effort and potential duplication.
Understood. And in terms of the, you said duplicated effort and a kind of internal inefficiency, would you say there was an additional requirement around sort of communication between teams and that kind of inefficiency in terms of, yeah, the operational teams as well?
Yeah, certainly. Obviously, there's always a bit of an interface between asset managers or infrastructure kind of teams and operations. So, we are generally technical people. We look at the technical data, but making that data available to the operations kind of teams definitely has benefits and can provide them efficiencies and insights into the way, for example, a port operates or the way operations interface with infrastructure. Definitely, there's applications there.
Got it. And as we move into talking about the solution and how you address this, Just give us a sense of, you mentioned some of the assets you're managing and what you can share. Tell us a little bit about some of those data sources and assets that you're actually working with.
Yeah, look, we have a very wide variety of data sources and assets. Some examples that where we do gather data is cathodic protection systems on large concrete structures. We've got stormwater culverts where there's crack monitoring systems. We have weather data, which is consolidated with ship tracking information, so AIS data from vessel movements. Bringing that into kind of mapping and live views of infrastructure utilization, which kind of then creates new sources of data, because then you can look at how utilized assets are with operations. Quite a large variety of data sources come into our platform.
Got it. And so as you started to consider changing the way you worked with the data from all of these different assets and systems, did you consider, was it an option to replace existing systems? And why didn't you go down that route?
Yeah, we did consider that. And what we found, and this is probably typical of most businesses out there, that we had specialized systems, and they are specialty systems for weather systems or cathodic protection, energy monitoring, water monitoring. Usually the way you implement those systems, they're done by specialty sensors and platforms, and quite often, or more often than not, those platforms aren't suited to dealing with data from other types of systems and sources. So it made sense to keep those specialty kind of systems in place and then look at consolidating the data from those systems.
I'm just going to pause there, Ashely. I did forget to mention to everyone, if you've got questions for Ashely or for myself, please type them into the chat as we go. We are going to have questions at the end of the conversation with Ashely, so please feel free just to type in those questions and we'll keep an eye on that. And we'll get to those as we get to the end of the conversation. But back to you, Ashely. So talk us a little bit through the process that you went through internally to start to address the challenges you've outlined, obviously to identify the challenges, and then as you move towards seeking a solution for that.
Look, I guess we were looking to consolidate data and have it available in a single source with dashboards and alerts and all of those things you mentioned earlier. So we kind of scoped those requirements in conjunction with Rayven, actually, and it built up the scope and then developed kind of the use cases. So there's some detailed use cases of what we wanted to achieve in combining the data, and some of the very detailed particular requirements on what we were going to do with the data. So then once that was documented and agreed on, the Rayven team went ahead and kind of built those solutions for us.
And can you give us a sense of what was actually created, Ashely?
Yeah, so essentially, we have a number of dashboard solutions. One example is an energy solution, which that's something that our sustainability team use quite heavily. They're looking at a lot of data to do with power consumption, power generation from solar systems, water consumption and trends. And the way that was consolidated, we can get visibility on the assets and how they're performing, if they're operational, if there's any faults and unusual trends. But then our sustainability team can go ahead and pull data from it and use it for their sustainability reporting and greenhouse gas emissions calculations and things like that.
So fantastic. And so would you say it was, consolidation of data, the context of combining data sources or visibility, or even just automating the collection process? Which of these do you feel was sort of most benefit to your teams?
Well, bit of a tough question, really all of them, but consolidation of data into a single area is probably a major benefit. Contextualizing it is also very important. You need to have data that's meaningful in terms of how we're looking at it. So, depending on what solution we're talking about here, whether it's power consumption or shipping information, you do need to contextualize the information with the kind of subject matter experts from those teams. And once it's contextualized, then that data kind of becomes more relevant for those teams and quite often for us. Look, there's many benefits there.
Great. And how would you say it's kind of changed the way the teams interact with the environment, the operational environment? I guess just building a little bit on the benefits you've just mentioned.
Oh, look, the real benefit there is you have real-time information at your fingertips. So you can literally just open up a web page or get the data at hand for various systems and platforms that we have, all these data streams. Having it at your fingertips means you get instant visibility of how things are performing, systems, operations, and then being able to act with that data. You might have a particular project where you want to pull the data, but then likewise having the data kind of alert you to any particular issues. You can have trends and alerts built into it that can bring it to our attention as infrastructure managers as well to act on.
And you've mentioned their alerts, and I remember you've said to me in the past the importance of alerts. Just talk us through a little bit about the benefit of having the right sort of alerts and notifications for your teams.
Yeah, it is important. It takes a bit of effort to make sure the alerts are relevant and applicable, but it's important. One particular example I can think of is cathodic protection systems. We may find that there's an electrical fault that a system goes offline, and traditionally with these CP systems, you might only be doing a 6-monthly maintenance task on it. 6 months is a long time to realize that something that's important in maintaining our assets is offline. So being given an alert, at the time or within the hour of there being a particular fault, that's highly valuable to ensuring the assets are maintained properly.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, well, thank you for talking us through that. I guess I'll just move on briefly to ask you a little bit about your experience with Rayven. So just talk us through a little bit about the role that we played as a company and how we helped you achieve the outcomes that you've mentioned.
Yeah, Rayven kind of helped us from the start, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of kind of defining the use cases and the applications. So there was a bit of scoping work, basically defining the scope and requirements. That was we started working with Rayven at that point in time, and then once the scope and definitions were developed, implementing it. So there was quite a lot of effort there required to bring in the data to the single platform. So Rayven have these data experts and technical people, which I'm not, who can really talk the right language in terms of bringing the data in, integrating or ingesting the data, as it's called, and then through to building dashboards. So building dashboards and alerts that are contextualized. So that's where we work in. We have to help define what is the context that we want the data displayed as, which involves numbers of pages. It could be high level information. It could be information that is detailed that you drill down into, and then obviously the alerts. Defining those alerts, something that we kind of basically comes from our side of things more than anything, with the assistance of the experience of the data team and the experts at Rayven as well.
And one of the things that we often get asked by potential customers is how much effort is it and what kind of expertise do they need to have? You just sort of touched on that a little bit, but talk us through from a client perspective or an operator perspective, what sort of effort and expertise did you feel you needed or you drew on from your internal team?
Yeah, look, it does take some effort, and it does take some knowledge. You need to know what you're talking about. So you can't just throw in, someone who is trying to consolidate data and contextualize it if they don't know what the data means themselves. So we have to have quite a detailed understanding of what the data is and what it means. But in terms of the kind of the IT and technical side of things, that was not I couldn't bring anything to the party there. So kind of working in partnership with Rayven, brought the solution together.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for that, Ashely. I might open it up now to some questions from the floor. So I'm just going to ask my colleague Clint, if you're there, to take us through any questions that might have come through. I know we had a few emailed in prior to this session as well. And just let us know what people are asking.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul and Ashely. That was really insightful with some great content and takeaways to be had. So yeah, we'll move into the Q&A now. We have had a couple of questions submitted, as well as the questions that have come in via email. So the first question we've had come in is from Ben Opitz. So this one is probably for yourself, Ash. So have you seen any AI use cases? Sustainability and reporting must be a big challenge.
Look, I'll probably open that question to Paul as well, but really, for sustainability for us is based on hard fixed data. So I think AI is generally used for, interpreting and kind of maybe providing extra analysis. I don't get involved in that personally. That's done by a sustainability team. So I haven't seen or used AI use cases. Maybe Paul, do you have anything further to add here?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about AI with customers every day, and we're very particular about, identifying the true benefits that particularly generative AI, which is what I'm talking about, can add, because that's what the world is obviously most excited about at the moment. We've got a particular perspective on that. Generative AI is very good at certain things, but it's not there to solve all problems, particularly in a physical asset rich environment. But yeah, it's just about understanding what value it can add and how it can help in the solution. But I'll talk a little bit about that later on as I go through Rayven as well.
Excellent. We have another question from Andy Holben. So does this system require an additional data historian, or does it just access current data pools in real time? It's probably one for yourself, Paul.
Yeah, and I'll give Ashely a chance to talk about what they do as well. So from a technical perspective, Rayven in particular tends to sit above your existing data sources. So as I said, we're not trying to replace or force companies to put in new infrastructure that's required beforehand. So we can sit above it if you've already got it, or we can act as the data store as well, as the data lake essentially. So Rayven has significant enterprise storage capabilities. So we can keep all of that data, even the long tail of streaming, data from as long as you need. But yeah, it really just adapts to whatever you've got in the environment currently. Ashely, is there anything you wanted to add to that one?
Yeah, I might add to that. So the way we have applied it for our use cases is a bit of both, I would say. So, we consolidated data, but as you call it, a data lake, there was a lot of database or data lake storage in terms of the data pools. And that certainly has been the case for our use cases to some extent as well.
Excellent, thank you. And Andy has also asked some follow-up questions as well. So is the system built within your current IT environment, and how much interaction with your internal IT team was needed?
Yeah, so for ours, it's not hosted internally, so it's an external service provided to us. So not hosted within the IT environment. There was some internal IT interaction required from us, particularly where we're gathering data from internal IT sources. But then there was also probably predominantly interactions with external data providers. So some of our third-party other vendors in terms of gathering the data. Hopefully that answers the question.
Excellent. And we did have a couple of questions, or a few questions come in via email. So this one is directed to yourself, Ash. So how much preparation was needed before you started on this project, and what kind of prep work did you go through?
Look, not really any preparation. The real preparation was in the scoping and the use cases. That is the preparation. So you're defining what you're going to do, where's the data coming from, how are you going to use it. That is the preparation. So like any project, you've got to have a good scope and definitions. That was the preparation work. And then Rayven were excellent at helping us there. We had some well documented use cases and scopes, and that's what we implemented.
Yep, excellent.
Clint, I'd say we probably just have time for one more before we need to move on.
Yep, not a problem. And Paul, so there's one here for you, and that is from a supplier perspective, what makes a project like this more likely to succeed?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think that the biggest challenge, as you probably gathered, is always about getting access to the data. From a technologist perspective, we feel that we can do kind of anything with it, actually, and we've got super flexible technology that allows us to visualize data and create experiences and create alerts and logic and all of that type of stuff. So the challenge is really about, you know, how structured and organized is the environment, is the customer who's wanting the solution, and having access to someone that's able to coordinate on their side and able to answer technical questions about data access. As Ashely's alluded to, we needed to work not only with Ashely, but also with third-party providers and sometimes internal IT people. So having someone able to coordinate that and to help drive you know, the outcomes we need in terms of getting access to that data is probably the number one. And then number two, of course, is about having a clear vision of what you're trying to achieve with the solution, because, you know, it's, you know, choose your own adventure in a way, which is a double-edged sword. We can create anything, but that can also be distracting at times. So being able to get to a really tight kind of brief and vision as to what should be implemented is the next thing that would make it a success.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul. There are some more questions, but we'll follow up directly with responses to all of those that are remaining. And if there are any questions that pop up in addition, feel free to put them in and we'll come back to you. So I'll hand back to yourself, Paul.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Ashely, and thank you for reading out the questions. So just a quick summary of kind of what we've heard from Ashely today in the New South Wales Ports environment. There are a couple of screenshots on the screen to demystify some of what they have created and what we've created together and what we have access to. And as Clint said, if there's any additional follow-up questions for Ashely or for myself, please feel free to contact us and email them through. I'll just take you through very, very briefly a little bit about Rayven and how we can help. So Rayven is a technology provider. We have a complete software solution, a platform actually that allows us to create these types of solutions very, very cost effectively and efficiently. That's really our thing. You know, we know that these solutions are possible. Normally, you would need to access several different enterprise type software packages, and that can be very expensive and require a lot of engineering effort to pull this type of solution together. So Rayven, although we don't offer every feature that every product out there has, we have the features that you need to get a really practical, pragmatic solution up and running as quickly as possible. That's really what our value is. In terms of the tech, we have the ability to integrate with just about anything. Obviously, this includes industrial systems like SCADA, sensors and instrumentation and meters that you've already got in the field. Very importantly, we can integrate with pre-existing software packages and IT systems, whether it's a CMMS, an ERP, a finance system, and things like that. We can also work with human-entered data, which is very important, whether that be images taken in the field or files that have been uploaded or anything that's been typed in. And we even have specialty asset-related capabilities like QR codes. So we have a dynamic QR code capability that allows us to you know, put these QR codes on assets, and you can scan the QR code and it gets you immediately into a relevant screen or page on the solution, even mobile ready and so on. The second part of the architecture or the framework that we've got is about logic. So it's about creating logic that can automatically process data from all of these different sources. So this speaks to not only the integrations and the consolidation, we talked about context. So it's about pulling data from different places, processing it, comparing it, normalizing it, and doing this all in an automated fashion so that you don't have people working in Excel for hours trying to you know, splice data together and so forth. When we talk about automation, it can actually also mean real automation in the field, like business process and operational process automation as well. This logic that you see in these workflows can also send data out of the system, so you can automate turning things on and off, obviously alerts we talked about and reports and so on. Very quickly, behind the scenes, we've got different database technologies. As I said, it's enterprise grade. We have unstructured databases that allow us to keep track of that never-ending time series real-time data generated in the field. We also have structured databases that allow us to create bespoke tables that might be needed to keep track of, you know, site data, asset metadata, maybe even staff data and things like that. And the third piece to the Rayven technology is, of course, the interfaces and custom experiences that can be created. Yes, this could be the typical analytics and BI type dashboards. Usually there's a bit of that, but more and more we're creating interactive experiences that let operational users actually take action and input something and do something about the data that they're seeing in front of them as well. So it's quite a customizable system from end to end. And we are here to help. So obviously, if you're suffering from or you're experiencing any of the challenges that we've talked about today, and you'd like to improve or investigate how that could be improved in your environment, we've got a process that we've mastered over the last 8 years that starts with understanding your business outcomes. We can work with you, as Ashely said, even before that, to figure out the kind of the scope and the use cases that you want to prioritize. And then take that through a solution requirements, a detailed understanding of what's needed for different users in your environment. We can design and obviously implement the solution using the Rayven technology, but it doesn't stop there. We absolutely will support you all the way through to implementation, go live, and then beyond that as well. We're here to support, and we work in quite a collaborative and supportive manner with our customers as well. And then finally, what we're offering and the action for you guys is to get a readiness assessment. So we've actually created an online capability, an online experience where you can go now, and we're going to post that into the chat. We're also going to email this out to you after the webinar, and this will allow you to go through a self-paced, maybe 5 or 10, even 15 minutes set of questions that will give you an immediate AI-empowered report. And then, of course, we'll follow that up with a conversation with you to talk about, the business case, what kind of outcomes you're looking for. We can certainly help you understand any costs that would be associated with a project like this, and even help you, gather the information you need to get the stakeholder support that you would need from your business stakeholders as well. And with that, I would like to thank everyone very much for joining the webinar today. It's been a pleasure taking you through it. I really want to thank Ashely for joining from New South Wales Ports. Thank you for your insights and exposing your experiences to the group. And once again, we will contact you after the call, but if you've got any additional questions, please don't hesitate to let us know. And we look forward to those future conversations. Thank you, everyone, very much.